بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل عنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يعتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلغ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تعتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما مما رزقكم الله. قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين. ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون. سلام قولا من رب رحيم. وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون. ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون. وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون. ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إن نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
مناجات شعبانية. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد واسمع دعائي إذا دعوتك واسمع ندائي إذا ناديتك وأقبل علي إذا ناجيتك فقد هربت إليك ووقفت بين يديك مستكينا لك متضرعا إليك راجيا لما لديك ثوابي وتعلم ما في نفسي وتخبر حاجتي وتعرف ضميري ولا يخفى عليك أمر منقلبي ومثواي وما أريد أن أبدأ به من منطقي وأتفوه به من طلبتي وأرجوه لعاقبتي وقد جرت مقاديرك علي يا سيدي فيما يكون مني إلى آخر عمري من سريرتي وعلانيتي وبيدك لا بيد غيرك زيادتي ونقصي ونفعي وضري إلهي إن هرمتني فمن ذا الذي يرزقني، وإن خذلتني فمن ذا الذي ينصرني. إلهي أعوذ بك من غضبك وحلول سخطك. إلهي إن كنت غير مستعهل لرحمتك فأنت أهل أن تجود علي بفضل سعتك. إلهي كأني بنفسي واقفة بين يديك، وقد أظلها حسن توكلي عليك، فقلت ما أنت أهله وتغمدتني بعفوك. إلهي إن عفوت فمن أولى منك بذلك، وإن كان قد دنا أجلي ولم يدنني منك عملي فقد جعلت الإقرار بالذنب إليك وسيلتي. إلهي قد جرت على نفسي في النذر لها، فلها الويل إن لم تغفر لها. إلهي لم يزل برك علي أيام حياتي، فلا تقطع برك أني في مماتي. إلهي كيف عايس من حسن نظرك لي بعد مماتي، وأنت لم تولني إلا الجميل في حياتي. إلهي تول من أمري ما أنت أهله، وعد علي بفضلك على مذنب قد غمره جهله. إلهي قد سترت علي ذنوبا في الدنيا، وأنا أهوج إلى سترها علي منك في الأخرى، إذ لم تظهرها لأحد من عبادك الصالحين، فلا تفضحني يوم القيامة على رؤوس الأشهاد. إلهي جودك بسط أملي، وعفوك أفضل من عملي. إلهي فسرني بلقائك يوم تقضي فيه بين عبادك. إلهي اعتذاري إليك اعتذار من لم يستغن عن قبول عذره، فاقبل عذري يا أكرم من اعتذر إليه المسيئون. إلهي لا ترد حاجتي، ولا تخيب طمعي، ولا تقطع منك رجائي وأملي. إلهي لو أردت هواني لم تهدني، ولو أردت فضيحتي لم تعافني. إلهي ما أظنك تردني في حاجة قد أفنيت عمري في طلبها منك. إلهي فلك الحمد أبدا أبدا دائما سرمدا، يزيد ولا يبيد كما تحب وترضى. إلهي إن أخذتني بجرمي أخذتك بعفوك، وإن أخذتني بذنوبي أخذتك بمغفرتك، وإن أدخلتني النار أعلمت أهلها أني أحبك. إلهي إن كان صغر في جنب طاعتك عملي، فقد كبر في جنب رجائك أملي. إلهي كيف أنقلب من عندك بالخيبة مهروما، وقد كان حسن ظني بجودك أن تقلبني بالنجاة مرحوما. إلهي وقد أفنيت عمري في شرة السحو عنك، وأبليت شبابي في سكرة التباعد منك. إلهي فلم أستيقظ أيام اغتراري بك وركوني إلى سبيل سخطك. إلهي وأنا عبدك وابن عبدك قائم بين يديك متوسل بكرمك إليك. إلهي أنا عبد أتنصل إليك مما كنت أواجهك به من قلة استحيائي من نظرك، وأطلب العفو منك إذ العفو نعت لكرمك. إلهي لم يكن لي حول فأنتقل به عن معصيتك إلا في وقت أيقظتني لمحبتك، وكما أردت أن أكون كنت فشكرتك بإدخالي في كرمك ولتطهير قلبي من أوساخ الغفلة عنك. إلهي انظر إلي نظر من ناديته فأجابك، واستعملته بمعونتك فأطاعك. يا قريبا لا يبعد عن المغتر به، ويا جوادا لا يبخل عمن رجا ثوابه. إلهي هب لي قلبا يدنيه منك شوقه، ولسانا يرفع إليك صدقه، ونظرا يقربه منك حقه. إلهي إنما أنت عرف بك غير مجهول، ومن لاذ بك غير مخذول، ومن أقبلت عليه غير مملول. إلهي إن من انتهج بك لمستنير، وإن من اعتصم بك لمستجير، فقد لست بك يا إلهي فلا تخيب ظني من رحمتك، ولا تحجبني عن رعفتك. إلهي أقمني في أحل ولايتك مقام من رجا الزيادة من محبتك. إلهي وألهمني ولهان بذكرك إلى ذكرك، وحمتي في روح نجاه أسمائك ومحل قدسك. إلهي بك عليك إلا ألحقتني بمحل أهل طاعتك والمثوى الصالح من مرضاتك، فإني لا أقدر لنفسي دفعا ولا أملك لها نفعا. إلهي أنا عبدك الضعيف المذنب ومملوكك المنيب، فلا تجعلني ممن صرفت عنه وجهك وحجبه سحوه عن عفوك. إلهي هب لي كمال الانقطاع إليك، وأنر أبصار قلوبنا بضياء نظرها إليك، حتى تخرق أبصار القلوب حجب النور، فتصل إلى معدن العظمة، وتصير أرواحنا معلقة بعز قدسك. إلهي واجعلني ممن ناديته فأجابك ولاحظته فصائق لجلالك فناجيته سرا وعمل لك جهرا. إلهي لم أسلط على حسن ظني قنوت العياس ولا انقطع رجائي من جميل كرمك. إلهي إن كانت الخطايا قد أسقطتني لديك فاصفح عني بحسن توكلي عليك. إلهي إن حطتني الذنوب من مكارم لطفك فقد نبهني اليقين إلى كرم عطفك. إلهي إن أنامتني الغفلة عن الاستعداد للقائك فقد نبهتني المعرفة بكرم آلائك. إلهي إن دعاني إلى النار عظيم عقابك فقد دعاني إلى الجنة جزيل ثوابك. إلهي فلك أسأل وإليك أبتهل وأرغب وأسألك أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن تجعلني ممن يديم ذكرك ولا ينقض أحدك ولا يغفل عن شكرك ولا يستخف بأمرك. إلهي وألحقني بنور عزك الأبهج فأكون لك عارفا وعن سواك منحرفا ومنك خائفا مراقبا يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. وصلى الله على محمد رسوله وآله الطاهرين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. وصل يا رب على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
زيارة ورث. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة. لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن، بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم، وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. جاتي علي أكبر عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. جاءت شهداء كربلاء عليه السلام. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. جاءت حضرت عباس عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخي المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة. إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم. ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرور موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين. يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون وحور عين كأمثال اللؤلؤ المكنون جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما. وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخضود وطلح منضود وظل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفروش مرفوعة. إن أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبكارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين. ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين. وأصحاب الشمال ما أصحاب الشمال في سموم وحميم وظل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم. إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك مترفين وكانوا يصرون على الحنث العظيم وكانوا يقولون أئذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أئنا لمبعوثون أو آباؤنا الأولون. قل إن الأولين والآخرين لمجموعون إلى ميقات يوم معلوم. ثم إنكم أيها الضالون المكذبون لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب اللهيم. هذا نزلهم يوم الدين. نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون. أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون. نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون. ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون. أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون. لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون. إن لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون. أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون. لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا أفلا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم آمنا به صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن
Fatiha for Najib bint Sayyid Asghar Ali, who passed away yesterday in Mumbai, the names that will be appearing on the screen, and all marhumin. Surah al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dua Shifa is also requested for everyone who is in need tonight. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'ah wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On Sunday, 10th of March, that's this Sunday, we'll be holding a life support training day where you will learn life-saving skills. To sign up, please visit our website. This month of Ramadan, a group of our youth are offering lifts to Hyderi for any of the elders who struggle to attend. For further details and to register your interest, please speak to Ammar Walji or Mohammed Abbas Lalji. Our Shahr Ramadan programs will be starting on Monday. As we know, there is tremendous reward for feeding iftar to those who are fasting. If you would like to contribute towards iftar or tabarruk, please either speak to the desk outside or refer to our diary of events. Before we invite the Sheikh to deliver tonight's seminar, please can I ask you all to stand up and move a little bit closer to the front, and at the same time, if we can welcome Sheikh Mohammed Hilli with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلقه وخاتم أنبيائه وسيد رسله، سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. My dear respected sisters, brothers, Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. There was an individual at the time of the Holy Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. His name was Abu Darda, and Abu Darda was a frequent attendee at the mosque in Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina. One day, he didn't turn up. So he wasn't there at Fajr Jamaat Salah. So the Holy Prophet of Islam asks, where is Abu Darda? Later, at Dhuhr time, when there was the Jamaat Salah, once they finished, or it doesn't tell us the riwayah when, afterwards, he comes to see the Prophet. He says to him, Ya Rasulullah, you wanted to see me? He said, yes, I have, I'm just wondering, why did you miss Fajr this morning? As in, why didn't you come and do Jamaat Salah with us? So Abu Darda said, Ya Rasulullah, I spent the night in ibadah, worship. And so by close to Fajr time, I was really tired. I thought it's better if I stay at home and do my Salah at home. You know, sometimes when someone wants to tell you off and you answer them really well, kind of thing. He thought he's telling the Prophet, I spent the night in ibadah. So the Prophet would tell him, MashaAllah, well done, it's okay. The Prophet looks to him and says, by God, what is more beloved to me than the staying up at night is you coming for Salatul Jama'ah for Fajr. So there are three narrations. Some of our ulama say this is one of the unique mustahab acts in Islam that have more reward than Namaaz al-Shab. And that is the congregatory prayers, the Salatul Jama'ah. And of course, tonight's discussion is not about its importance or its significance and benefit. Just a reminder, I thought, to start with, because sometimes, unfortunately, we take it lightly. And what happens as well is we tend to make it more complicated than it is, in the sense that in other schools, yes, they may have slightly more relaxed jurisprudential connotations regarding the person who leads the prayer. But even in the school of Ahl al-Bayt, many people have thought that it's much more difficult than it actually is. And sometimes you enter our centers or Shia mosques and whatever, and you see people praying by themselves and you wonder what's going on. Why is there no encouragement? Even at home, it is highly recommended whereby the husband leads the congregatory Jamaat prayers at home, for example, or the wife joins and the kids, for instance, and that is something that is very good. And if the husband is not there, even if there is, for example, if there is a son who is baligh, they can lead the salah, for instance, if they have the basic conditions, requirements that they can recite correctly, yes, as long as, along with a few others, such as, for example, they are sane and that they are legitimately born and so on, which is usually the case. Now, the discussion tonight, though, is more about some of the particular jurisprudential aspects, the so-called MOT. I don't know who came up with that, but it is kind of going through some of the essentials of the rulings regarding the Jama'at Salah. And that is because, unfortunately, sometimes we see many people making mistakes regularly when we observe the Jama'at Salah being taking place. Not necessarily just here, but everywhere else. I've been in this kind of, no, I won't say business, this kind of profession for the last 20 years. I have never seen a workshop on Jama'at Salah. So this could be the first one ever in the Western world. I don't know if anyone else has seen, as detailed. Of course, if you the Hausa seminaries and whatever, there are discussions. But it is so important because we do see regular mistakes. So what I'll try and do, although some of the stuff is slightly technical and is a bit detailed, and for a Thursday night after work, you might switch off. And I'll try and, give you opportunities anytime you have any questions, do ask. But the other thing also to note is that there is a chance that you will ask a question that I will cover, but that's not a problem. We will go through as much as we can in the hour that we have. And if there is a need, we can cover the rest, inshallah, in another opportunity. But I always say this, and I said it the last time when we did the Salah one. I can't remember if I've done a wudu one here. Yeah? Wudu ghusl? Yeah? Okay. I always give this disclaimer, and that is I am not responsible for anyone who goes through any heart problems as a result of listening to what I say, or freaks out and says my salah is batil for the last God knows how many years. Okay, it is important for us to get to know this, and based on whether we knew the rulings or we did not, there is a different connotation to it. Okay, so I'll start by asking a few questions and see if anyone is able to help me so that to get the kind of ball rolling. Now, of course, Jamaat Salah in the Shia jurisprudential school of thought is only permissible for wajib prayers. Do you agree? So mustahab prayers, recommended prayers, we don't perform Jamaat Salah. What is the one wajib Salah that one cannot do Jama'ah in? It's quite a tough first question. Yes. Sorry? Namaz al-Mayyit is Jama'at. But people do repeat. But it's still everyone together, but you can do it by yourself too. Sorry? Namaz ayat. So namaz ayat, is it wajib or not? Well, namaz ayat cannot be done in jama'at except for the lunar and the solar eclipse. Those two are the exceptions that Jama'at can be done with those two. Okay? There is, however, one wajib salah that there is no Jama'at in. That's a nice one to start off with, just for your kind of general knowledge. Not really, it's fiqh knowledge. And that is the salah of tawaf. The salah of tawaf is wajib, but you can't do it in Jama'ah. Okay? Usually, everything else that's wajib, you can do in Jama'ah. Now, what is the salah that is mustahab that you can do in Jama'ah? The Eidain is an interesting one, the two Eids, because it's usually wajib, but the time of the ghaibah of the Imam, it's not. So there is a bit of an exception there, but it kind of can be accepted at this current stage. But there is another one. Jum'ah, again, it's a similar one to Eid, because at the time, according to different opinions, of course, at the time of the ghaibah of the Imam, it's not wajib, but when he is here, when the Imam is here, it is wajib. There is one salah, and these are tough questions, I know. There is one salah that's mustahab in Shia thought, and it can be done as jama'at, and that's the salah for rain, istisqa. Okay? So that is a prayer, if you ever need to do it in the UK, there is a problem. Because we have, alhamdulillah, plenty of rain here. But if you ever want to join it in other parts of the world, then it can be done in congregation. Now, if I am praying, if I've done my Dhuhr and Asr and I see somebody praying, a congregation that are praying, for example, Maghrib and Isha, or Dhuhr and Asr, and I've done my Dhuhr and Asr, and I want to do my Isha qadha, am I able to join with the congregation that the Imam that's leading a totally different salah? If I can have a show of hands of those who say yes. Much less sisters. Okay, and the show of hands of those who say no? Sisters have already lost the will to live. Because they're not even answering at all. Okay, the answer is yes. So this is the first thing we're going to say regarding Salatul Jama'ah, is that you are able to join any Salah that's wajib, and it doesn't matter which Salah you are praying. Okay? So if you want to do Qadha Salah of Fajr and the Imam is leading Maghrib, no problem. If the Imam is leading Isha and you want to do Dhuhr, Qadha, then no problem. Okay? So there's no issues there. Now, the least number of people needed to establish a Jama'at Salah is 2. So this is not Jum'ah. Jum'ah is 5, but Jama'at Salah you need 2. Now, if they're both female, there are slightly different rulings to if they're male and a female. Okay? According to many of the ulama, today's discussion mainly is going to be of the opinion of His Eminence Ayatollah Sistani, Hafidhullah, but there will be references to Ayatollah Khou'i and potentially other maraja, but it gets complicated when I list different opinions and you start really losing it, given that it's quite detailed. Now, if there is a man and a female that's praying behind him in Salatul Jama'ah, what happens is, and that's a common situation at home, what happens is the female, of course, is behind the male, but the furthest point that she can stand is when she's in sajda, she can't be ahead where his knees are in sajda. Okay? So he's in sajda, his knees are on the ground. That's the point where the particular lady who's praying behind him has to be maximum. She can't be ahead of that. Can it be any lady, or does it have to be wife or mahram? Subhanallah, the lady said any lady, the brothers said mahram. It's very interesting. But in reality, it could be anybody. It could be anybody. There's no particular, doesn't have to be, because there's no touching here involved or anything that involves anything. It's just a lady praying behind a man. You know, and so the maximum that she can be in this regard is where this line is, where his knees are. Now, if there's 2 ladies, according to our maraja', including Ayatollah Sistani, he says it must be like this. It can't be anything else, and that's the imam, the lady who's leading the salah, must be exactly next to the others. So she can't precede the ladies like the normal case when a man is doing it. Now, if an imam, I'm just giving you some initial standard important concepts, questions that come up, and then we'll go through some details regarding some of the basics, and then a bit more about some of the common misconceptions or problems or mistakes. Now, if the imam is praying qasr, so imam is praying 2 rakats, can those behind him pray full? Yes. If the opposite is also true, so if the imam is leading full, those behind him can also pray qasr. Although Ayatollah Sistani says that kind of salah is makruh. That's the opinion of His Eminence, although some maraja' differ on this. But we sometimes have a visiting scholar who is leading, but it could be, some other ulama say, it could be offset by the fact that the imam, one of the conditions, or it's better that the imam who's leading a jama'at is actually more knowledgeable, and if there is an imam who is a scholar, there's more reward in those who follow the imam. So there's that element that's being offset, but Allah knows best. Okay, so yes.
It's not permissible where a visitor imam can lead a Jamaat Namaz because he has to pray Qasr.
No, it's permissible, but it's makruh.
But I read it in the Salah here.
Check it. I read it about 10 minutes ago.
Check it now.
So I came here, I went through the rulings on the thing, but it's makruh, so there's no problem. It's just not recommended, but it's okay if that's the best situation. Okay. Now, yes. Yes, both instances. So either if the imam is leading qasr or the imam is full and the... But you see, and the problem is we have so much recommendations in going to pray inside the shrines of the Ma'sumin. and inside, for example, Madinatul Munawwara, Masjid al-Nabawi and the Masjid al-Haram. And of course, that's a different situation because there we are given a choice and it's better to pray full in Medina and Mecca entirety. But let's say for the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you're not a frequent traveler, which most people aren't, you're supposed to pray qasr. There, this is outside this discussion and I'm eating time from what I have. But can I just ask, because I've found this question to be one of the most puzzling questions for people and they don't know the answer. Shall I ask it? What does makruh mean?
It is.
You get a reward for avoiding it, but no sin for doing it.
Excellent answer. Yeah? So, the idea of makruh, people often say, oh, it's makruh. It's makruh to stand up and drink water at night, for example. Yes? So, it's makruh means you don't get any sins, but if you avoid it, you get thawab. But the question here, some of the ulama say, you get thawab if you avoid it, but in certain circumstances, because of the situation, you might get more thawab because of that situation if you do it. Does that make sense? So if, for example, in a case like this where the imam is an alim, there could be more thawab joining because the imam is alim than if it was a normal circumstance where the imam is just not an alim. And maybe that instance, or you praying in the shrine, you being in the shrine and you have praying qasr and the imam is praying full, the thawab will be much greater than the thawab you'd get for not doing it. Does that make sense? So just keep that in mind. But my recommendation is that because we are weak, and I'll say it honestly, as a Shia community, we are weak in Jamaat Salah, I don't encourage people to take that too seriously, the issue of it's makruh and all that, this issue. Because we do want to encourage people to take part in Jamaat Salah even when they are traveling. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through some of the important basics that we all should know, because inshallah we all take part in Jamaat Salah. But I'll if there's any questions about the basics, and then we'll move on to a bit more difficult or more complicated examples of what happens in Jamaat. So, in Jamaat Salah, the Imam takes responsibility when it comes to the recitation of the surahs, but everything else must be recited by the ma'moom, the people who follow. I've seen in certain situations where people are just standing there in Jama'at Salah quiet. The whole Salah, ruku', sujood, tashahhud, taslim. When they recite the 3 tasbihah, just silent. And that's a mistake. That the Imam only is responsible for the recitation of the surah and the next surah. So Surah Al-Fatiha and the next surah in the first 2 rakats, not anything else. Responsible means that everyone else must recite. Okay? Now, in the salah, a person following can precede the imam in the aqwal, not the af'al. Aqwal means statements or the sayings, but not actions. Please understand this is important. Meaning what? Meaning that if I am, mashallah, Speedy Gonzalez and I recite things quickly, it's not a problem if I recite things quicker than the imam, with the exception of 2 things. So I can recite things quicker than the imam except 2 things. I can't. What are they? Ahsan, the takbiratul ihram. I can't say takbiratul ihram before the imam does. And what happens if I do? What's not valid? I haven't joined the Jamaat. It turns into furada. And usually you shouldn't really stop, you shouldn't just say Allahu Akbar and you realize the Imam hasn't said Allahu Akbar and you're like, oh, walk away or do something. You should continue in your salah. But there is a provision for you to stop the prayers if you feel that it's very important or necessary for you to join the Jama'ah, to be part of the Jama'ah. Which other one is less serious but it should not be recited before the Imam? Which is a very common thing, by the way. Yeah. Yes, at the end. To say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I've seen a lot of people, what they do is, because the Imam sometimes takes the tashahhud quite slowly, So they say, Assalamu alaikum Nabi rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillah as-salihin, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and then they stay still. And then the Imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, then they do this. Have you seen that? And people think just by staying still, they're still in Salah. No, you've left Salah. The moment you've said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Khuda Hafiz. It's gone. You're out of Salah now. And you're out of Salah before the Imam. Now what does that do to the Salah? I'm just trying to ask, otherwise I'll get lots of sleepy faces. Sorry? Invalid? Thank God you're not a marja. No, it's not invalid. What happens is many of the maraji' are of the opinion of the past, of the opinion that the salah becomes furada. Now, Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khoi say it's okay. They are of the opinion that it's okay, that you do not leave Jamaat. But many of the, so out of ihtiyat, just to kind of be absolutely sure, recommended precaution, don't precede the Imam in saying the salam at the end. Wait until you hear the Imam says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, then say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's not the movement of the hands, it's whatever you say. Now, yes?
No, it's okay. You kind of answered it. But what if you're in a Jamaat and there's no mic? The person in the front doesn't have a mic, and you can't hear them doing the two surahs. You can't hear them when they finish their salam or tashahhud. Do you make an educated guess, or do you recite? Obviously, the first two surahs you shouldn't recite, but you're meant to listen to it. So if you don't listen to anything, does that invalidate it? Or because you have no choice, it's still okay?
You don't need to listen as such. It's mustahab for the Imam of the Jama'at to raise his voice, but not to the extent that he's screaming. So it's good to be heard in the 3 salahs that the voice needs to be raised in the recitations, Maghrib, Isha and Fajr. In those salahs, if you can hear the Imam, then it's recommended to, stay silent or just not say much. If you can't hear the Imam, then it's recommended to recite Fatiha or dhikr, but not with the intention that it's wajib, just something as a dhikr, if you can't hear the Imam. However, for Dhuhr and Asr, you need to stay silent. Yeah? For Dhuhr and Asr, you need to stay silent. Is that okay? Yeah? Now, so we said you cannot precede the Imam with actions, but you can precede the Imam with what? With what? Words, what you recite. Yes? Except now, the preceding of the actions here is a bit of a tricky one. So this is the first of a few technical masail. I realize, it's not easy to digest, but like I said, please ask if it's not straightforward. If you are, for example, in ruku' and you can't hear the Imam, and you think the Imam has stood up, say, Sami Allahu liman hamida, and the Imam hasn't. So you accidentally stand up thinking the Imam stood up, but the Imam is still in ruku'. What do you do then? Keep standing. You wait. You go back. You stay standing. There's so many different opinions. That's why this is needed. Can't be both, huh? Has to be one of them, right? According to Ayatollah Sistani, it is based on obligatory precaution, wajib, to go back. And if you deliberately stand and you don't join, what happens to the salah? It stands furada. Don't worry about, people are still freaking out, it becomes invalid. No, it stands to furada. So if you do stand and then you think, oh no, the Imam is still, so someone asks, but what about you adding another ruk'ah? Isn't it? In Salatul Jama'ah, it's okay if you're doing it not deliberately. In normal Salah, it's not. In Salatul Jama'ah, there are provisions, there are special laws Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided so that it becomes, a bit more easier. But the key thing, and I'd like you to focus on this, the key thing that our Maraja, especially Ayatollah Sistani, is very strict on this. He and many other Maraja, and I'll explain this a bit further, say you should not be further away from the Imam in your actions to the extent that someone who looks at you says, you're not really in Jamaat Salah. And I'll explain how that is. Sometimes, when the Imam is in the final ruk'ah, and some mu'mineen, mashallah, want to recite Dua Abu Hamza in the final ruk'ah. They just do whatever. And the Imam is sat down and he's doing Alhamdulillah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and they're still in sajda. Have you seen them? They're still doing all that kinds of different dhikr. That's wrong. That you can't do. You've got to join straight away. You've got to cut what you're doing. You've got to be as much as possible with the Imam. This is not about doing the mustahabbat. This is not about, I'm used to at home reciting a special dua. And the Imam of the mosque doesn't want to do it, so I want to do it. No. This is about joining, being very, very much with the Imam. Hence, when the Imam is still in ruku', you have to go back in ruku'. And the same for sajda. So you've sat down, the Imam is still there. However, there is a small exception. And that is if you've sat and you've seen the Imam coming up, then don't go back down. If you've seen the Imam going up, but most people don't see unless you're in the first row. Certainly, ladies won't see unless you're praying behind, for example, a male. Yes, you wouldn't see if the male of the person is standing up, right? So that's very important for us to keep in consideration. Now, the other thing to bear in mind as far as Salatul Jama'ah, before coming into the actual logistics and where we stand, is when I am a person who wants to join the Jama'ah, I can join in the first ruk'ah when the Imam is standing, and I can join when the Imam is in ruku'. Do you agree? Yeah. This, what I'm about to say now, sisters and brothers, is one of the most common mistakes. Yeah, I'll come to that. You can join at the end if you're sitting, if you're in a tashahhud, but that's a bit complicated. But I'll come to that in a minute. But one of the common mistakes that happens in terms of the joining is the following. Please pay attention to this. It's a very common mistake. And that is what? You've seen the Imam in ruku'. Okay? You've seen the Imam in ruku', and you want to join. And so you say Allahu Akbar, but you haven't gone into ruku' yet, and the Imam stands up. Have you seen those situations? No? Yes? So, what is the ruling there? There are people who think the moment I said Allahu Akbar and the Imam is in ruku', I've joined. There are people who think like that. And so they just go into ruku' whilst the Imam is standing up and going to sujood, and then they continue normal. Here, it's a major issue. The first thing is, if the Imam has stood up when you say Allahu Akbar, or you're saying Allahu Akbar, Imam has stood up, if you do go down into ruku', your salah is batal, void, 100%. No, this is X. And I wonder how many people have done that. Is that clear? Or is this a bit ambiguous? So I'll repeat. So if you come in, you say Allahu Akbar, and the Imam, when you've said Allahu Akbar, you haven't gone into ruku' and the Imam is in ruku'. You've just said Allahu Akbar and the Imam stands up. You with me? And then you're thinking, I'll go into ruku'. It's fine. If you do go down into ruku', then your salah is void. Completely.
He's in ruku' and then you go in ruku' and he's about to stand up. That's
as
fine.
long as you catch him in ruku' and you go in ruku'. Yeah. You must be in ruku' when he's in ruku'. Does that make sense? Now, if you came and he stood up when you said Allahu Akbar, what do? Are you in trouble? Tough one, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
We haven't seen whether the Imam's
If you can't see, then you base it on what you can hear or the people in front of you. There's nothing you can do. Then it's not a problem because you don't know. How would you know that the Imam was standing when you joined? You don't know. We're talking mostly about the brothers who can, or in the instance if you are, for example, at the home. Yeah. So please understand this. You have here a number of options. The first is you can cut your prayers and wait for the Imam to finish his first rak'ah, stand up and join. Second, you have an option, and that is what? Furada. So you've said Allahu Akbar, no going into ruku' because you haven't recited yet. So then you recite Fatiha, another surah, just pray normal. And the third is interesting. The third one is you go into sajda. So you haven't done your ruku'. You go into sajda. You do whatever the Imam is saying. And then when you stand up, this will count as your first one, but you just say Allahu Akbar. You just say Allahu Akbar, and then you continue. And that counts as your first one. But if you can't remember the third option, it is better to stick to one of the two options. So some of these are slightly technical, but they are important for you to know in case you're in the situation, and I'm sure you will be. You will be one day, maybe not the sisters, but the brothers, if the Imam has stood up when you are about to join. Yes? Any questions? Yes.
Please, can you use the mic so that everybody can hear your question?
So if you treated that as your first rakat, if you went into sajda, what happens when the Imam goes into kunut? Would you do it or would you just stand?
No, you didn't treat it as your first rak'ah. Remember, we said you just joined with the Imam, you stand up, do takbirah, and that's your first rak'ah.
Yeah.
So then, if it's, again, if you now join in the second rak'ah, and it's your first rak'ah, do you do qunut? Hands up those who say, I'm just doing hands up to have a bit of exercise circulation. Hands up those who say, it's your first rak'ah. So the Imam is in the second rak'ah, you've joined whilst he's standing, and he's done qunut, everyone's done qunut. Do you do qunut with them? Hands up those who say yes. My God. And hands up those who say no. So far the brothers seem to be quite well more advanced in this. So yes, you can. There's no issues because the qunut is mustahab. So there is no problem in you putting your hands up and reciting qunut. You're not adding something to salah. It's a recommended thing, and you're joining everybody. So there is no issue in that regard. So yes, in answer to your question, you just do qunut there. Okay. Now, when you sit, now you're still in the first rak'ah. When you sit, the Imam is reciting what? Tashahhud. Do you agree? It is wajib based on obligatory precaution. Ayatollah Sistani. Wajib. Please understand this. It's wajib for you to be sitting like this, and I have to demonstrate it. Okay. I hope everybody can see me there. So the Imam is gone. He's doing tashahhud. You must be doing something like this, where the knees are not on the ground. So, and you're holding like this. Unfortunately, some people are just sitting like this, waiting. No, he says, based on obligatory precaution, your knees must be off the ground to indicate that what? This is not this is just, you're waiting for the Imam to stand. And once the Imam stands, then you stand after the Imam. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. Now, the other tricky thing, and this also requires your attention, is now in the third and the fourth rak'ah. Okay? If now Imam is in the third rak'ah, and you are now standing, you did like this, you stood up, what do you recite? When the Imam is reciting Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, what do you recite? Fatiha. You recite Fatiha and second surah. Okay, please understand this. You recite Surah Fatiha and the second surah. However, if the Imam, which is very likely by the way, because the speed of the 3 tasbihat, unless you read Surah Fatiha in an enormously quick way. The speed of the 3 tasbihat is much shorter than the Surah and the Fatiha. So, Ayatullah Khoi and a number of other maraji' say Surah Fatiha must be recited. Ayatullah Sistani says, if you can recite Fatiha and another surah, great. But if you can't, recite Fatiha. But imagine you're reciting Fatiha and the Imam goes into ruku'. So you're saying, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, and the Imam is gone into ruku' because it's Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. And sometimes, very rarely, the Imam decides to recite one time Subhanallah because it's not wajib to do 3 times, right? You can do 1 time. So imagine Imam stands up and says Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar once, and then he goes into ruku'. Now, Ayatullah Sistani says, at that moment you cut your Surah Fatiha. And he's unique in that. Is that clear? Yes? He says you should not, because some people have this belief that no, I have to finish the Fatiha. By the time you finish the Fatiha, the Maulana is in sajda. He's gone. Right? And you're very far. That distance between you and the Imam, remember this, that's the secret thing. You need to be as close as possible to the actions of the Imam and not lagging behind. Okay? Now, Imam is in the 3rd rak'ah or the 4th rak'ah and you're first joining. So you've come to join. Yes? Do you agree? You're with me still? Yes? You've come to join. What happens? You have 2 options. The best option is to wait for him, or in the case if there are ladies only, to go into ruku'. So he goes into ruku', then you say Allahu Akbar and you make sure you join as long as when he's in ruku'. Everyone's with me with that? There are some people, however, who prefer to join when the Imam is reciting the tasbihat. Can you do that? Yes? Yes, sisters? You're scared to answer any questions. You can do that. But what do you have to do if you do that? You have to recite Surah Fatiha. But there is a problem here. The Maraji' say you need to have itmi'nan, or at least some form of certainty or confidence that there is enough time to recite Surah Fatiha. How on earth are you going to find that out? Tell me. Will you ask the Maulana when he's praying, excuse me, do I have enough time? You can't do that, right? There's no way for you to find out. So the best option, dear sisters and brothers, is wait until the Imam goes into ruku' and then join the... Yeah? And then obviously when the Imam stands up for the 4th rak'ah, if that was the 3rd rak'ah and for you it's the 2nd, you have to then recite the same Surah Fatiha, and the Imam would recite the tasbihat, for example. Is that clear? Yes?
I suspect that when somebody comes in late, announces Ya Allah or something.
Inna Allah ma'as sabirin.
Yeah, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin.
Allah is with the patient ones. Yes.
That the Imam then would consider their 2nd rakat. In the sense that if they've gone into Tasbihat Arba.
You consider means to prolong their...
No, I mean, just... Yeah,
inshallah, that's the whole point. That's the idea. When you say, plea, in Allah ma'as sabirin is a plea to prolong your ruku' in the hope that you can join. Otherwise, it becomes more complicated. Yeah? Is that okay?
Yeah. But that's kind of the norm, isn't it? If Imam is aware, then they would consider their...
Yeah, usually they would try, but sometimes, you see, help the Imam out by reciting, the brothers, I mean, the sisters won't be able to be heard, especially if they're in a different hall. But if the Imam is waiting, then recite the takbir quite loud. Because I've been in situations where somebody said, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. So I prolong my ruku'. Then I'm thinking, has he joined or not? I don't know, has he joined or not? And there is silence. So he's probably the poor guy come in and says, Allahu Akbar. You know, say Allahu Akbar. That means I've joined. Bismillah, continue. You know, just to help the imam of the congregation out. Is that okay? Yeah. Any questions so far? Yes.
You said if you join the third rakat, you would wait and go into ruku.
Best.
If I join the third rakat, it's my first rakat.
Yes.
Then in the fourth rakat, it's okay to cut just Surah Fatiha. Am I correct? Because I don't need to have itminan that I'm going to complete this whole Surah Fatiha.
In the fourth rakat, you must recite Surah Fatiha.
No. So it'd be my second rakat.
Yes. In the fourth rakat of the imam.
Yeah.
It's your second.
Yeah.
You need to recite Fatiha. You must.
Yeah. But
That is not itminan because you don't have a choice that you have to recite it.
So,
And in that instance, if the imam does go down, you must terminate the Fatiha.
that's one, yeah.
Because with Ayatollah Sistani, it's all about joining. It's not about lagging. Yes.
So if you join at the time of ruku, and you're, say he's in second, and you join in ruku, so do you then come back up and then go into sajda straight away?
Yeah.
But your first rakat will be after sajda then, no? Or
No, that counts as your.
Okay.
As long as you join at the time of either the imam standing or when the imam is in ruku' and you bow down and the imam is in ruku', that counts as your first rak'ah. That's your first rak'ah. There's no need, that's it. And then when you stand up, that's your second rak'ah. Is that okay? Yes.
So if I'm joining in ruku, so the imam is also in ruku at the moment, but
Yeah.
does he have to be in the wajib zikr, or if he's already in salawat, say for example, can I still join?
No. It's not about the dhikr, it's about the position.
So as long as he is in the
As
ruku.
long as he's in ruku'. So he could be reciting Dua Kumail.
Yeah.
Anything. It could be reciting anything. As long as he's in ruku', no problem.
Fine. So we can, to recap, we can join in ruku as long as he is still in ruku.
Yes.
We can join in qiyam, in ruku, salah 1 and 2, as long as in 1 and 2, if I'm joining, I don't need to worry about can I complete my Fatiha or not. I can just join at any time.
When?
In the salah, in the rakah 1 and 2.
No. Definitely better to wait. So if you're
Right.
joining first time and you don't know how long you've got,
Yeah.
don't say Allahu Akbar and the imam is standing reciting. Wait until the imam goes into ruku', then join.
Otherwise, I have to be comfortable that I can join and do my Fatiha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least Fatiha or both.
Now the ruling is, Ayatollah Sistani says, if you think I do have time and you joined and you didn't have time, you just said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and the imam goes into ruku'. What happens then? But you had confidence that you had time. You've made a very blatant mistake. Yeah.
No, just generally that people are coming from the Ghusl Khana, coming in and then just joining, and the imam is in his Surah Fatiha.
That's fine.
That's
the first and the second rak'ah. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the third and the fourth, when the imam is reciting tasbih. In the first or second, you could join any moment, and you don't need to recite anything. Remember, yeah. Okay, so.
Sorry.
Just to answer that question, though, Ayatollah Sistani says if you think there's enough time, you join, and there's not enough time, it's okay. He says it's fine, but you cut the Fatiha. It's fine. But he says, if you thought, yeah, I do have enough time to recite Fatiha, but then you realize you don't. But my advice is, definitely always go when the imam is in ruku'. It's much, much better, much safer, and it stops all the confusion. Whenever is imam in ruku', say Allahu Akbar. And by the way, there's another mistake here. Right? And that is, let me demonstrate this. And that is, people often do this. So the imam, in order to catch the imam, what they do is, so the imam is in ruku', so imagine the imam is in ruku', they come behind and they do this, Allahu Akbar. Batil salah. Straight away. Why is it batil?
Is it because it's the Takbiratul Ihram?
Exactly. So you are in motion when you're reciting Takbiratul Ihram. I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot, because there is a desperation to catch the imam, and in that desperation they've lost their prayers. So it must be Allahu Akbar, standing, then you go down. So a second of itmi'nan, istiqrar, you are standing, Allahu Akbar, then you go down. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I've also noticed that some people say Allahu Akbar for Takbiratul Ihram and then say Allahu Akbar again before going into ruku.
That's okay. The reason for that is the first one is wajib, the second is not. The second should be said for the sake of just general dhikr in salah, not any specific dhikr. So there's no problem, because often we say that this dhikr when we stand and sit, there's no issues there. Okay? So, yes, there's a question? All right.
Sorry, yeah, he answered he answered this one. He just said, so if you do takbir, normally I would stand just for a few moments and let's say takbir again. But you're saying you can just do takbir once, stand, and then go straight into ruku.
Yeah, you don't need to do takbir twice.
Okay.
Just once is wajib.
Just once is wajib. Okay.
Yeah. The second, if it's you saying it for general dhikr, no problem. But takbir once is okay.
So you
is
join
wajib, sorry.
So my real question was, say you join in the third rakat at ruku, and then you get up for the fourth rakat. Can you pray? Is it better than to pray your Fatiha at leisure and think, you know what, I'll manage to finish that before he goes into his ruku? Or is it better to speed it up?
Well, this is not YouTube where you have an option to do times two. What you have to do is you have to recite it correctly.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. So speed it up. If it's going to compromise its recitation, it's a problem.
So in that fourth rakat, is it better to do just a slightly slower Fatiha, knowing that you're probably not going to get the same?
I can't tell you that, because it's up to each person. It's important, if you can, to recite both. That's what's wajib. Yeah. The wajib is to recite Fatiha and another surah. If you recite Fatiha, some people recite it very slowly, some people recite it a bit faster, as long as you recite it correctly.
So the intention should still be that you're going to do two.
Sorry?
The intention.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's wajib to do two, unless you don't have time to do two. Yeah? Is that okay? Okay. So let me go through a bit more details now, because there's a bit of a few masail which are quite interesting, and I'd like to point your attention towards, because they're quite unknown masail or opinions. There is an opinion, I don't know if you want to know this, it's just for general purpose knowledge, but if you've just come and the Jamaat is nearly finished and the Imam is in the final tashahhud, and you're like, oh, I missed it. It is permissible for you to say Allahu Akbar and to sit. And you do recite the tashahhud, but for the niyyah of qurba mutlaqa, meaning proximity to Allah, not the niyyah that it's wajib. Okay, but you don't say the taslim. So you only can catch the imam whilst they're in tashahhud, not if they're saying Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. If the imam is saying Alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, you can join, sit, and recite that part as well, right? Once the imam finishes, says Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillah as-salihin, Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You stand up, you don't need to do takbiratul ihram. And you count, you start counting from one. So that sitting gets you a bit of thawab, but doesn't count as any rak'ah. But that's just if you want to do it. Okay, if it's going to confuse you, usually you're not allowed to sit at the tashahhud. This is where the exception, is. Now, in
Just on that point, so if they are doing tashahhud and you want to do your namaz, should you wait until that namaz is finished and then start your, then do your namaz that you've missed? Or
if you've joined in tashahhud?
No, if you decide I'm going to do my namaz separately.
Oh no, you don't need to wait down.
You just do it.
No.
Yeah.
Now another common thing is people, if they've joined the next at the second rak'ah, so they've got one more to make and the imam finishes, right? And so they're doing this thing where they wait. Or they read like for example, they're doing Maghrib, they've joined at the second rak'ah, right? So the Imam is about to finish, they've got one more rak'ah to do, right? So usually what people do is, when the Imam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, the moment he says, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi, people stand up. Is that true? As in, have you seen people do that? I've seen loads of people do that. The actual ruling is, you should wait until the Salah finish, the Salah finishes. That's the ruling. Does it invalidate? It doesn't. Is it likely that it will reduce the thawab? Yes. Does it mean that you are breaking off from Jama'at? Possibly. It's a shame. It will only take another 15 seconds. But people are in a hurry. I don't know why. Are you with me? So the Imam is about to finish and they're out after the tashahhud finishes. So you should wait for the taslim. Wait for the taslim to end and then stand and continue your prayers. Is that okay? Okay. Seen it what? People finish until the
No, standing up.
Sorry? You've seen
Standing
that a lot,
up.
isn't it? Yeah. It's a shame. It's not going to invalidate the prayer, but it is likely because, you see, you are with the Jamaat. At any moment in Jamaat, by the way, can you break away from Jamaat? So you're standing and the Imam is reciting and you're thinking, you know what, I need to, or let's give a better example. A wife is praying behind her husband and the husband is taking his time and the wife is saying, you know what, the biryani is going to burn. So I need to get back to switch it off. And the husband doesn't really care. He's reciting Surah Baqarah after Fatiha. So he's, he doesn't care about biryani. He's going to ask me, where is it afterwards? So I need to get, so can the wife cut she's behind the husband praying Jamaat, all of a sudden she switches to Farada. Can she do that? Hands up those who say she can. Only 2 ladies at the back. And 2 here, and 3, 4. And hands up those who say no, it's not allowed. I could swear that the ladies are now scared to answer. And the answer is absolutely fine. No problem. If a person behind an Imam Jama'at decides to turn into Faradaniya, switch Farada. But the moment you switch to Farada, you can't switch back to Jama'at. It's not a game.
But if there's only 2 of you, and that person says, all right, I'm going to sort out the biryani.
Yes.
Then there's no Jamaat at all, even for the person leading each other.
I thought your question is then there's no biryani. So yeah, I mean, the Jamaat is ended. Jamaat is ended. Question, the Imam of Jamaat, do we need to take their permission for Jamaat? Do you understand the question? So the Imam is the person praying by themselves. Do you need to go and say, can I pray behind you, or can you just join? You need to let them know? Yeah? You need to let them know generally? Yeah? No. No. It's okay to join anybody, but there is a difference. They say the thawab, the Imam who actually himself volunteers or leads the Jama'at gets more thawab than the person who is praying and then people join just like that. But then obviously the Imam needs to have certain qualities. So you need to be confident at least that that's the qualities that they exist when it comes to. But these qualities usually exist because people are praying. So it's the correct recitation, they are aqil, insane, they are Shia Ithna Ashari, they are not born illegitimately, and they are not a fasiq. Fasiq means sinning publicly, well known as a sinner. If these are not there, then normally you can join somebody. Yes, you can join somebody, and inshallah that there is a thawab for Jama'at Salah. What is the thawab of Jama'at prayers, congregatory prayers, over individual prayers?
Some say 70.
70 times more? Yeah. Any other? Excellent answer. Grows exponentially as more people join. And these are the narrations that exist regarding this. I have some beautiful narrations, but time doesn't allow us. It starts with 25, according to Ayatollah Sistani. It starts with 25 times. And the beautiful thing about Jama'ah is, if Allah accepts the salah of one person in the entire Jama'ah, then all the other people's salah will be accepted as well. You know, there's so much benefits. I don't know why it's sometimes neglected. Well, it's a lot of the times neglected. But the benefits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, listen, I'm giving you this sale, this amazing opportunity, but you don't want to take it, right? And so let's ensure that at least we incorporate it as much as possible. Now, I wanna go through some rulings regarding the conditions of establishing a Jama'ah prayers. Yes? So that's I'm gonna discuss this now. So now it's about the actual logistics of how the Jama'ah should be established, because also in this blessed community, I was told that there is the need for there to be connection with the ladies all the time, right? When there is Jama'at Salah, right? So to make sure that the brothers are always all there, the ladies pray in that hall. Yeah, so there has to be, it's okay if the door is, you know, if there's a curtain or whatever between men and women, but there has to be in front of the curtain one of the males, and behind the curtain a particular one of the ladies who's part of Jama'ah. So that's that. And before I forget as well, there is this issue which is not really discussed in the books of, in the fiqh sections of Jama'at Salah, but it's discussed in prayers. And that's the clothing, but it's more evident in Jama'at Salah. And that is in the summer, brothers, it's a brothers issue. So sisters can take a break for a minute. It's the brothers issue, and that is in the summer, particularly, not much in the winter. A lot of brothers sometimes wear tight t-shirts. Okay? Tight t-shirts, not necessarily haram, but in the Salatul Jama'ah, it becomes a problem. Why? And even normal Salah, but it's visible in Jama'at prayers. And that is when you go into ruku', in sujood, the shirts, tight t-shirts are pulled. And even when you wear some, I don't know, baggy trousers, so people behind you see things that they're not supposed to see. To be polite as possible. Yeah? I've seen that when I've been to like Heathrow prayer room. Once I went in and it was a shocking scene. Honestly, right in front of me, one of the brothers was praying. I think he was too excited getting onto a plane. But please, this is Salah. This is not a joke, you know. So wear loose clothing. And it happens a lot. You think it's funny, but it is actually a big issue for brothers. They don't take it seriously. Their shirt is pulled, their trousers, and so their, you know, the area that should be covered is exposed in Salah. Two problems. One, in Salah is a problem. Second, those behind them seeing it in Salah. Have mercy on them. And the sisters, warn your husbands, brothers, fathers, remind them, because it's still an issue in our communities. Yes? Okay, so shorts are not ethically good to wear in Salah, but they are allowed. They're allowed. It's not ethical in the sense that...
You said shorts. You mean short sleeves?
No, shorts.
Shorts. Okay.
Actual short. An actual short. Because in Salah for men, what has to be, and this is men only, huh? The ladies have to be in full hijab. In Salah, the private area has to be covered only in Shia jurisprudence. In Sunni, some between the navel and the knees and so on. Anything below the knees, they say no, above the knees. But not in as far as our ulama is concerned, the private area only has to be covered. Okay? No. But it's not a good thing to do in Salah because you're facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You wouldn't go to an interview in shorts. Unless you're going for the Liverpool manager job after club. You know, you're going there as even then people don't go with shorts. I think if you are really considering in a state to pray whereby you are before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not befitting to stand there in shorts, for example, because it's not, but is it haram? There's a difference between it being haram and not being befitting. Does that make sense? It's not haram, but it's not ethically good to do so. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it already 1 hour? Yes.
Questions. With clothing, for the ladies, it is wajib to cover your chin, right?
It's not wajib to cover your chin, no. Ayatollah Sistani says it's okay for your chin, which is normally exposed in hijab, normal hijab, to be exposed in salah as well. The only difference between a hijab of the lady in salah and outside is the feet, which is kind of similar as well. So the feet can be exposed in salah provided there's no non-mahrams. Okay? But in normal times, if there's non-mahrams, you don't need to wear hijab. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the only difference. Otherwise, the hijab is the same. Everything has to be the same. It has to be loose clothing and so on and so forth.
And the second question is, so is the ladies' first line actually a real first line because we're behind the men? So do the rules like you can't have non-baligh children in the first line? No. So we're not really a first line?
No.
So we can have children, we can have everything. Non-balighs? Yes,
but I'll explain in a moment this issue about children, because a lot of people have this, not clear about exactly where children can stand when it comes to the line. So this is the final part. I believe, how much time do I have? There's quite a few things, but I want to talk about the conditions of Jamaat and where people stand. Okay, so as far as establishing a Jamaat congregatory prayers is concerned, there mustn't be a barrier between men that stops the connection that usually happens from the right and the left except the first line. So let me explain this. The way in Jama'at Salah that somebody connects with the Imam is the Imam stands and there is a person behind them, and there's a person behind that person and the person behind that person. So the connection happens from the right and the left. Okay? Now, if behind this first row there is a pillar, and then there is somebody who's standing behind that pillar, then there is no connection there. Or if there is a glass window or a glass door or anything that's a barrier, or, this is very important, a human being who's not praying. Now you might be thinking, who's not praying in Jamaat prayers? Those who are in qasr. So please understand this. Sometimes what you have is, you have a first line, people praying who are full. Then you have entirely a second line of everyone who are qasr. Then you have a third line of people who are praying full. There's no connection. At least one of them needs to be praying full for the third line to be connecting. And that person who's praying full mustn't have a barrier behind him, like a door or a pole or a pillar or whatever. Is that clear? Yeah?
Can that person who did qasr, if he prays just two rakats of just,
Yes, so the issue with qasr is very interesting. Those who are in the first line who are praying qasr, it's not good if you're on the first line to pray qasr. But if you are praying in the first line, this is primarily for brothers or for sisters when they're sisters only Jamaat. If you're praying qasr and you're on the first line, absolutely make sure that if you're finished after 2 rakats, to then stand up and join to pray another 2 rakats, for example, Asr Qadha or Fajr Qadha, most likely Fajr Qadha to be honest, so that you are then reconnected. If the reconnection happens fairly quickly, no problem, which is the time taken for people to stand up and to join. But if they just sit there, then it's a problem, because if all of them sit there, but especially the one behind the Imam, and then those two, then there is no connection. Okay, is that clear? That is usually quite a complex one, but it's one that I'd like to draw your attention. The Imam cannot be higher than the ma'mumin, the followers. So, this is usually the case sometimes when people go for picnics and they go to the park and there is like a hill. Yeah? And the Imam is leading the Jamaat and they're behind, and then the Imam is kind of higher. If it's a slight height, which is usually not that visible or not very, very identifiable, then it's okay. But if it's a slope, then no. If it's like a big slope, that there is a huge difference between the Imam. So the Imam must always be at the same level or lower than the people following. And of course, they can never be ahead. So that's a foregone conclusion, but in some mosques and whatever, due to the way they've put the halls and where the men and women pray, sometimes the women pray ahead of the men, and that's where the problem lies. But I don't think it's an issue here, but it's just something that needs to be understood. Now, in Jamaat Salah, if there's two men, it is permissible for the second person to stand very close to the Imam, if there's only two. But if he gets more, what does he do? If there's two men praying and then others start to join, what happens? I don't know why I'm looking at the sisters. What happens? Have you been in those situations? So do you see what I'm saying? The Imam is there. The person praying behind him is very close to him. It's allowed. So it's allowed even to be as, not in the same line, but slightly behind him. Just slightly behind him, right? So not like the ladies where the knees and the sajda point. No, they can be. But if others join, he retracts. Goes back in Salah. It's okay. During Salah. Yes. Retracts during Salah. In fact, there is this incredible ruling that I don't know if you recite salawat, I can give you this ruling. This is a fantastic ruling which I was like, wow, but I don't know how easy is it to implement, but bear with me as I explain it to you. And that is, you arrive at a place where the Imam is maybe much bigger than this, and the Imam is leading Salah, right? And you know that by the time you get to the line, the Imam would have gone into sajda, right? So the ruling of Ayatollah Sistani is, wherever you are, even if there is a big distance and there's no connection, as long as you can see the Imam and the people, wherever you are, you do takbirah, you do Allahu Akbar, right? And if in that moment the Imam goes into ruku', you go into ruku'. And then whilst in ruku', you start walking in ruku'. The ruling says you walk slowly. If the Imam at that time says Sami Allahu liman hamida and goes into sujood, you go sujood where you are. And then you wait when the Imam, don't worry, you don't then go sujood, because you can't do that, right? Then you wait until the Imam stands, and then when the Imam stands for the second ruk'ah, you walk until you get to where people are. That's incredible. I mean, that's how much there is emphasis to join Jama'at prayers. In fact, there was a blind man at the time of the Holy Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this blind man used to have somebody who used to bring him for Salah, Jama'ah. One day he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, I can't come to Jama'ah anymore because the person has said, I can't bring you. He's moved somewhere or whatever. So can I please be excused? Yes? If we can avoid the food for now, please, because otherwise it will be mayhem. This is out of respect for the actual workshop. Thank you so much. Yeah? What happened is basically the Prophet said to him, what you need to do is tie a rope to your house all the way to the mosque, and every day hold the rope and come to the mosque. just don't miss Jamaat. Even if you don't have someone, he's blind. He doesn't have somebody to bring him. Okay, I will...
Very quickly, I wanted to just make sure that when you are walking, during Salah, that is going to be a shuffle rather than walk.
Yes, it needs to be a very respectful, just a small step. So this is not a 100-meter run. I'm gonna just wrap up because I can see people tired. There's many other masail, so I've just touched the surface, by the way, but it's okay because it's important to know the rulings. Question here, which is very important for this Jamaat and many other Jamaats. Please pay attention to this, and that is: should my Salah be delayed so that I pray Jamaat? You're gonna ask that question. Thanks for asking. Yes, so I see all these Jamaats, mashallah, it's mainly a Khoja thing. It happens in other centers, but it's, they say Jamaat Salah 7:30, but the Salah was at 4:15. So there's 3 hours delay but they say because we're praying Jamaat. And you said, Maulana, it's 25 times better, so let's do that. Once Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, saw a man stealing in the market. So he followed him. Then when he stole what? Fruits. So he saw this man going and distributing the fruits to the poor. So he came to him and said to him, "O servant of Allah, what are you doing?" He said, "Ya ibn Rasulillah, I've worked it out." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When I steal, I get 1 sin. So I've stolen 5 fruits, that's 5 sins. Allah says if you do a hasana, He multiplies it by 10. So I've given these 5 fruits to 5 poor. That's what? That's 50. Minus 5, I'm 45. You know what label the Imam didn't give him? I give him pseudo marja. Works out things according to what he thinks is the right thing. So unfortunately, let me be absolutely brutal and honest here. The idea of getting more thawab by delaying Salah for Jama'ah, which is so long delay for 3 hours or whatever that goes outside the Fariḍah, is not established. It's not established. I have seen, and I can show you the fatwa from Agha Sistani. He was asked, should I delay my... He said, wait, we don't know. If it's within the prime time, yes. If it's within the Fariḍah time, recommended time, definitely. If you know, for example, the Jama'ah is in the 20 minutes time, and it's within the hour, an hour and a bit, great, wait. But waiting 3 hours in order to pray, because there is so much significance about praying on time. And the Quran highlights it, that it's إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. It is designated for believers that must pray on time. So this delaying of 3 hours in the winter, I don't know who came up with it. And it shouldn't take place, in my humble opinion, as the marja' has said. There isn't evidence in Islamic teachings that it gives you more reward. You're kind of playing around with things. Oh, but Maulana, it helps people to do Jamaat. Do Jamaat at 4:15. Oh, but people are at work. Khalas. Jamaat should be at its time, not later. It's not the same. No, I have the answer. That's why I knew this question is important and I brought it up. I have the answer from Agha Sistani's book, the Rasail and Minhaj al-Salihin, and it's there. He says, I have not found any evidence that it's better. Now the question is, if he's saying it's not better, why are we doing it? We shouldn't be doing it if it's better. Now, he hasn't said it's wrong, but because there is emphasis upon praying on time, I think that's what needs to be focused on. And that's something that we have to keep.
How long is the Fadilah time? Within what space of time? Half an hour or 20 minutes?
Usually an hour, 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Now, the very few final, I know we're late, give me just 5 minutes and inshallah I will conclude. there is an issue, my dear sisters and brothers, with people who come in and see an imam or a person leading salah and then they pray by themselves. They don't want to join. There is a problem here. So there is a secondary sin that could take place, and that is ihanatul mu'min, the violation of the sacredness of a believer. Because what that potentially may do is give an indication to people that this person is unjust or recites wrongly. And so the Maraja have said that if you do not want to pray behind him, don't pray in that area. Pray somewhere else. Don't come and there is a Jamaat Salah and then you're praying by yourself. Yeah, join with them and just do farada, as you said, with the niyyah of farada. Good option there. But some people don't want to even do that. Oh, but I don't like this Maulana. He said it's okay to say salam on Ashura day. Is that okay? So please, it's very important that you do not violate the sanctity of any person, because there is actions, connotations involved relating to people, what they do. The other thing is praying behind a non-Shi'i imam. So we're talking about when you go for Umrah, when you go for Hajj, when, for example, at schools, colleges, universities, if the imam who's leading salah is not from the school of Ahl al-Bayt. First of all, Jum'ah namaz can never be established. So Jum'ah you need to repeat. So it does not cover your Dhuhr salah. First. Secondly, however, when it comes to normal prayers, it is encouraged by our ulama, especially when you go Umrah and Hajj, in those areas, to foster stronger relations with our brothers and sisters, other schools of thought, as far as, not create division and so on. And there is, however, a stipulation, and that is because the imam is not Shia Ithna Ashari, you would need to recite the surahs yourself. So either you have the niyyah that's furada, or a niyyah that's jama'ah. In those instances, niyyah jama'ah, it's okay. Right? So you can have a niyyah jama'ah, but you recite Fatiha and the other surah, that's fine as well, and you can do that. Finally, I mean, there's so many other points, we may need another session, but just final point, what is the most important jama'at namaz out of the 5? Asr, Maghrib. We've had every single one mentioned. Maghrib, yeah. The most important one and the most tawab is Fajr. It's Fajr. And there are specific narrations about that because it's the hardest one. Yes? But hardest one for mosque, but not at home, for example. If there is a possibility to ensure that Jamaat Salah is prayed at home with the children, with the wife, everybody as a family, that's a fantastic thing. Really, if you can do that, that's tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there is any other final questions, we can, So if you're behind the imam, then yes. But if you're anywhere else, for example, if you're in the 3rd row and you just walk away, that's okay because they're connected with the person in the front row, the front of them. Is that okay? Yeah. 1 second, just for equality purposes. So I have this, but unfortunately we don't have time. There is the issue of the first line for the ladies is that it's not considered the first line. It's considered one of the normal lines because they are connecting with the men, and therefore it's not considered first line. So the children. So now we have the issue with children. If a children is what's known as mumayyaz, meaning 10 or more as a male, of course, if it's a girl, 10, there's no problem. But if it's a 10-year-old boy and more, Ayatollah Sistani and many of the Maraja say it is not a problem as far as establishing a connection. Some people say, they're not baligh. But that's not really the criteria. He's allowed 10, and even people who are not Shia. So he says, even if there's a non-Shia person who is the main person to connect you, or if it's a child who's more than 10, there is not a problem. And if it's a child who's baligha, who's 9, there's no issue. But if it's a child who is less than 9, then obviously, if she's standing in the first line, if she is the person right behind the man who is, for example, that's where the problem lies. If she's not baligha. But she's anywhere else in the line, it shouldn't be a problem because those behind will be connecting by the person in front of them. Yes. You'll be fine. It's the only issue is if you have that girl who is 8 or 7, for example, behind the imam, behind the man, the person or the front row, if there is one man. But if there's plenty, that's not a problem because see if there's men all along and the ladies are all behind them, if there is one girl who is not baligha, that's okay because the others are connecting with the person in front of them. Sorry? If they are? Yeah, so if it depends. If these 3 girls, are they the main connection to the first line? If they're the main connection, then it's the best practice. It's the best thing to get the girls and the boys who are less than 10 or whatever to be right at the end, at the edge, and not in the middle, just in case they are the ones who are connecting. And that's the best practice, for sure. Yeah? May Allah bless you all. Is there another question?
Sorry, I was going to say, you're saying that Maghrib Namaaz you should do on time. But
Yeah.
We do Isha straight after Maghrib, and some people don't do Isha straight after Maghrib. They have a few hours break.
Yeah.
What is Fazila for Isha Namaaz? See what I mean? Straight after Maghrib or a few hours after?
So, of course, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family did pray together and join the Salah with no reason. But our ulama say if you are able to divide them, it's much better. And the thawab is more if you are able to spread them. But usually now, out of convenience for Jamaat, and we don't have many mosques in our Western world either, in that sense. And even in the Shia countries like Iran and in some parts of Iraq, it's not usually commonly, it's a habit now developed where people are combining. It's always combined. It's very rare, seldom that you see anybody praying separately. But if individually, especially when you go Umrah or Hajj, then definitely try to separate them if you can to get more thawab, inshallah. Yeah.
No more questions, please, because the biryani is going to burn.
Okay. May Allah bless you all with the barakah of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.